Welcome, Georgie. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing all about spinal energetics with us. I'm very curious. You did a session on me 2 days ago now, so we'll talk a little bit about that and my experience as well. So thank you for that. Would you want to just start with a brief introduction on who you are you? I'm very excited to have an Australian on the show, so as it gets some Southern Hemisphere accents going. And what do you do? You're also a yoga teacher and part of our community, which is how we connected.
Yeah,
So
sure.
that's very exciting.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I was, really excited to be coming on the podcast because obviously that's how I found out about you. Like I was always listening to all Matt's taken. I love it. And then we connected and it was great to offer you an online session, online Spinal Energetics. I'm Georgie Jeans. I'm a yoga teacher and Spinal Energetics practitioner. I'm currently located in a little town called Swan Hill in Victoria, Australia. So it's on the border between New South Wales and Victoria on the Murray River. It's around 10,000 people, so not very big. And so I currently teach in-person group yoga classes, and also I offer in-person spinal energetics sessions and soon to be online sessions as well.
We are going to talk more about spinal energetics today. Before we go too far down that whole rabbit hole, can you please clarify what it is? I'd never heard of it before I was talking to you, and I'm sure many of the listeners haven't either, because it's quite a new type of energy
So it
healing,
is a
isn't it?
relatively new modality. So it's a somatic modality. It was developed by a chiropractor, Dr. Sarah Jane. So it essentially works with directly with the nervous system and the spine to release bound tension, trauma, and generally facilitate movement of energy through the body and the spine. Dr. Sarah Jane is a chiropractor, so she combined elements of chiropractic care, energy work, and somatic experiencing to create the modality. So it's been around for a few years now, but still very new, and lots of people don't know about it. So that's also really exciting. So the practice involves using light touch along the spine and breath and energy work to access the body's natural healing mechanisms. So during sessions, clients can often experience like spontaneous movements, emotional releases, um, sounds, like as the nervous system wants to just naturally unwind. So normally in person, clients are laying on a massage table or a spinal energetics table. And then with the online sessions, you set up comfortably in your own home, like either on the couch or a bed or the floor. And
Cool. Because we've obviously done it online. So in person, there is some like touching. Is that like for sort of pressure point areas along the
So
spine
in
or?
person, I'd say the main difference is in person, we do work with the physical assessment. So we use the feet to check the legs and the Achilles, and then the body essentially tells us where to start the work. Whereas online, obviously, we don't have access to the physical body. So it's generally guided a lot more by intuition. And also, we'll have a chat with the client, find out what they've been experiencing. So usually lots of symptoms can correlate with certain places to start working in the body, depending on where we think that the tension and the bound tension is being held in the body based off, it could be based off their past experiences, symptoms of what they're experiencing in the moment. So it's a lot more intuitive, but we do definitely still check through the different layers of the body, even though they're not there with us in person.
Interesting. How did you discover
Yeah,
spinal
so
energetics?
I was actually in Darwin at the time, so living up in the Northern Territory. And there was a yoga studio that had opened up there, and the owner there was actually a spinal flow practitioner. So I'd started experiencing spinal flow technique myself because I was still experiencing some like burnout symptoms and was just looking to try something different. And so from there, like I found it very beneficial, and because I really wanted to offer a modality and some sort of work that I could work more one-on-one with clients. So not just like group yoga classes, like I really wanted to add to my skill set. And I found spinal flow very beneficial. So I started looking into it, and then came across Spinal Energetics as well. And it turned out that, so Dr. Sarah actually had worked for Dr. Carly, who created spinal flow technique, and then had gone on to create her own Spinal Energetics. And then, so I was just like researching into it, and then like learning more about spinal energetics, and I just felt very like drawn to it, and I was looking at all the videos online and just really wanted to experience it for myself and then find out more about it, which I did. And then I thought, oh well, why not, I'll just apply and see if I get accepted. And I did, and then I went and did the training, and it all kind of went from there. Really, it was really it was a big life change, I think, compared to the work that I had been doing.
What does the training look like?
It's 4 days working directly with Dr. Sarah Jane and her incredible team of skilled practitioners. So it's very hands-on. She's demonstrating, and then you break up into sort of groups and you get to practice, ask them questions. You're constantly like experiencing the work for yourself, because obviously it's really important to know how it feels in yourself, so that then you can go out and share that with the clients afterwards. But so really you're under their guidance like the whole time, and they're teaching you just all the like nuances and technicalities with the modality. It's quite precise, so it does take a lot of practice. And it was a very different way of learning compared to what I'm used to. I'd come from a very academic book background where you read a book and then like write an essay. I felt like I was a bit thrown into the deep end, and it was very hands-on. And it was really fun though. Like, it was such a different way of learning. You just kind of go in, and it's nearly like you're just absorbing it all. Very different to what I was used to, but it was great.
Yeah, cool. Do you, because it's very intuitive, is that something that you think you already like tuned into to be able to do this work, or can you learn it, and as you practice more over time you're obviously getting more in tune with it?
So I would say everyone's different, and it is definitely a skill that you can learn. And Dr. Sarah Jane reminds us of that all the time. Like, it's a lot of practice and just experiencing with different clients, learning how to like read the body. And obviously some people are more naturally, or just a bit more already in tune with like feeling energy. And like, even you can imagine, when you walk into a room and you just feel like maybe there's like a couple of people in there and they've like had an argument or something, and you just feel like that something's like a bit off. So that's like, a basic example of just everyday people like experiencing or feeling energy. But I definitely feel like I've probably always been quite sensitive to things like that. Probably I didn't realize it when I was younger, and really sort of tuned out to that.
Yeah. Who benefits most from it in terms of the clients?
I don't think there's any like one specific type of person that can benefit from spinal energetics. Like, you definitely don't have to be like spiritually inclined or like have spiritual beliefs or anything like that. It is very practical in the way that it does work directly with the nervous system. Obviously, there are a lot of people that are skeptical out there, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I would encourage, if you are skeptical but a bit curious about it, I don't think there's any harm in trying something. It's not going to do any harm if you want to know more about it, or just go and explore it and experience it for yourself, rather than always reading about it or like constantly researching. Like, I think the mind always wants to like understand everything logically, and that's sometimes where we can get stuck as humans, which is why spinal energetics is so effective, because it's not really this, like, if you think of like talk therapy and stuff, it's very like top down processing. So the mind's trying to understand something and, pick apart and analyze the experience. Whereas being a more somatic therapy, we're really working like with the body from a bottom up approach. So which means that there's not really always like a story attached. Like if you have like a release or something, like some people are like a bit scared sometimes because they're like, oh, I don't know like what will come up, but really like sometimes things can be processed and there's not always a story attached like to that release. But I guess to go back to your question of, who is it for? It's really for anyone who has probably tried a lot of things. Like we find lots of people who come to Spinal Energetics, they've tried different like medical model things, different holistic things, and they're really still experiencing symptoms that are impacting on their lives, and they just know that it's like not them and that's not how they want to live. Like they just sort of have this knowing that there's so much more to life than constantly replaying these patterns and habits that aren't necessarily always helpful. Yeah, so usually spinal energetics, it's something that people turn to when they've kind of exhausted a lot of other options and, they're tired of like talk therapy. They've tried a lot of things and they're ready to they sort of feel like there is something deeper that perhaps is ready to be released and integrated.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially if there's something very deep or from your childhood or something subconscious that's like so subconscious that you can talk all day, but you're not necessarily going to uncover it because it's just really buried down in there. And in the body, there's a lot of talk about how our bodies store trauma. Yeah, I think that's interesting. And when you say like people are just kind of fed up or they've tried a lot of things, this can be like a physical and or emotional stuff.
Yeah, it might be, more emotional things like experiencing anxiety or, even depression, grief, and support people through significant life experiences like this. But equally, definitely physical benefits. Like some people might have chronic pain that there's no medical reason for. It can also bring up, it's so interesting, like it can bring up like old experiences, like from old accidents and stuff. So I did have a client who, not that long ago, yeah, said that after our session, this sort of pain presented, and it actually turned out it was from like a old horse riding injury that she'd had as a child. And then it kind of like brought it up, but then a few days later it resolved. So it's nearly like it like integrates that, like the imprint of the experience that, she wasn't experiencing the physical pain in the moment, but there might have been some sort of like nearly like a remnant of the experience lingering. And yeah, things like that can impact us, emotionally and just energetically, like how we turn up in our lives. So yeah, definitely like
Mm.
emotional and physical benefits. It's very unique to the individual depending on like what's going on for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I used to have this, it was like physiotherapy massage, so it wasn't relaxing. It was intense because I have this
Yeah.
chronic mystery hip problem that has been around for years and years and years. And we're working on that, and then he was saying, like, often things will like move around the body and there's like chain reactions to something, so it kind of like keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper and unraveling to like what the actual cause was. He studied a lot of Chinese medicine, so I can see how if there's like a little lingering of something that can pop up, something as far back as childhood that you've probably assumed has healed or maybe even forgotten about.
Yeah, I feel like we definitely don't give the body like enough credit for what it goes through and what it stores. And also just like the body's capacity to just keep going and like it's the word, like, just adapt and keep going. But I think sometimes it gets to the point where, these coping mechanisms, like they're not necessarily adaptive, they're actually like holding us back, even though it's like what helped us in the moment. And so usually it's like in the moment, something will happen maybe in the past and you don't have necessarily like the tools or resources to deal with it at the time. So then the body just, puts it away. Oh, that's too much, or like I'll deal with that another day, and then life just carries on, and it ends up affecting us on deeper levels. Yeah, so I think spinal energetics can really support people who, they feel like perhaps this might be their situation. Maybe, I mean, obviously everyone's had stuff that's happened to them in their lives. There's no one really that's not ever gone through anything, and trauma is very subjective to the individual. Like what might be traumatic for one person may not necessarily be traumatic for another person. So it's very much how your body responds to that, the actual or perceived event in the moment. Yeah, so yeah, I was only thinking this week like how incredible but also devastating it is that how much the body can go through and just keep going. Like it's actually amazing, like people and like the human capacity to just survive, and like the will to live and keep going, like regardless of like what has happened to people in the past. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I have a newfound respect for how much pain the body can go through and still survive after my appendix bursting while I was pregnant. That was
Oh my
the
God.
most incredible pain I can't even begin to describe. And I just remember being at the time also very amazed that you could be in that much pain and still be alive. Like so much respect for the physical body from that, and that's like minor compared to like what some people go through. You mentioned that it's not going to do any harm. Are there any contraindications for who shouldn't try it at all?
Yeah, sure. So I won't go into every single one, but they are available online if people are interested in searching. But a couple like severe PTSD, and then significant mental health like schizophrenia and maybe like bipolar. Postpartum, if women have just had a baby, there's a certain period of time that let things settle down before you maybe step into the energetic work. But in saying that, like if people are interested and maybe they've got some things going on or taking certain medications, it's always advisable to, just reach out to a practitioner, ask them the question, just let them know a bit more about your own personal circumstances, because most of the time, like we actually find that, people, it is a relatively safe modality and people can work with practitioners. And the great thing about spinal energetics is that there's lots of different practitioners from different backgrounds. So just because someone has a mental health concern doesn't necessarily mean that they can't benefit from spinal energetics. It might just be about finding the right practitioner for them, because there might be like a practitioner who comes from a psychology background that has the skills and the tools to be able to support them through, if something comes up. Equally, if it's more like a physical thing, there's practitioners that like osteos or physios. So yeah, really like everyone has come from like many different backgrounds and walks of life to spinal energetics. And that's another thing that makes it really interesting and intriguing, that, it's not like a purist modality. Obviously we get taught by Dr. Sarah Jane, but and she does want to maintain the essence of the work, but is very happy for like all the practitioners to bring their own unique experiences into the work, which I think ends up supporting people further, particularly if they have like, a very sort of specific concern, like maybe it's mental health. So they work with a practitioner who is trained in mental health, like maybe a psychiatrist or a psychologist, as well as having done spinal energetics. Yeah, there's just so many different people that have done the training. So if there is something specific going on for you, yeah, definitely don't hesitate to like reach out to a practitioner that you feel called to work for, because I feel like 8 or 9 times out of 10, like there is some way that it can end up supporting the people, but it doesn't hurt to ask the question.
And for someone that's like, I'm really interested, I would like to give it a go, what can they kind of expect through a session?
Yeah, sure. So initially, the sessions that I run, normally we'll have a bit of a chat at the start, like explain what spinal energetics is. Some people come a bit more familiar with what it is, others come, having no idea and they're just curious to try it. So we'll have a bit of a chat. Because I come from like a yoga background, I generally take people through a bit of guided breathing at the start to help them settle in. And then I do the assessment, whether it's like in person or online. So obviously in person's a physical assessment, online's more intuitive, tuning in. And then we start the session. We'll move through. In person, generally it goes for maybe around 20 to 30 minutes of like active treatment, and online might be more like 15, 20 minutes. But it just depends on the person. Like time's not really a strict um, requirement in spinal energetics. It's very much just what's happening with the person's body and their nervous system at the time. So if someone is going through a big release, like I'm not going to be like, oh, time to like wind up the clock now. And equally, sometimes it's better to like wind back and not do as much if people have sort of moved through a lot, maybe early in the session. So it's very much just tuning into like what's happening with the client and tailoring the session to what they need in the moment. And then towards the end, you have a bit of time for like what we call integration. So, bringing the body or, calming the system back down. Normally, I like to pull a card from a deck that I have, and I like to send that to the people that's got like a somatic practice on the back. But yeah, every practitioner is quite different, so I can only really speak like from my own personal experience and from the sessions that I do. Someone else might do it quite different, but yeah, there is also other things like group sessions and yeah, both online and in-person group sessions, so that's really interesting too.
I would describe it like getting settled in for a beautiful meditation or maybe like a sound healing. I found it quite intense at the start, like I was describing to you afterwards. It felt like I had this bit of an out of body experience, and then I already was starting to feel like that. And then I heard my baby cry. He was in another room and he woke up. And then I think like my energetic body was just like, woof, like get up to go see him. But I knew I was like, no, mom's looking after him, so it's okay. So I sort of settled into that, but I still had this like out of body experience. And then I was like, oh, this is a cool out of body experience. And then I sort of grounded back and settled back into my body, annoyingly, as that happens. But I really enjoyed it. I think I managed to stay awake pretty much the whole time, which is unusual for me with any kind of energetic healing. So I appreciated that I stayed awake for it, because I think that probably helped like integrate some of it a little bit more. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. My hip's been all right the last day since we did it, so that's
Good.
cool. It's still
Yeah.
like a little bit niggly, but it's not as painful as it was. I did have a massage on Friday though, so that helped. But I think back to back having both of them probably just like enhanced anything. The music was interesting. It's not what I expected the music to be.
Yeah, so I think lots of people kind of come to spinal energetics or maybe just energy work generally, I'm not sure, with this expectation that it's going to be like really relaxing or, a very like Zen experience. But yeah, so we use music to help facilitate the movement of energy and really like help guide people through like the processes that they're moving through in the session. So it's all about creating change in the system. So we don't really want the body to predict like what's going to happen next. So we don't really put on a playlist and then, just sort of like go through the playlist. Yeah. So, I might change the music. It might be like a song that's a bit more like slow and quiet and nice, and then I might change to like a more intense song to really help like facilitate certain feelings and emotions to like move through the body. Yeah, I had a session recently as well, and the same, like, received sort of the same feedback of like, oh, like the music was interesting. Not really what I expected, but yeah, and it was funny because yeah, the client said that they didn't know any of the songs, but there was like this like real sense of like familiarity, or like they didn't know the names of the songs or even, you know, the artists or anything, but yeah, felt like it was like quite supportive, I think, for the experience, which was, yeah, that was good feedback. But yeah, we're not trying to sort of, you know, we don't want you to just sort of lay there and relax all the time. It's actually about creating change in the system.
Yeah, I got a sense of that. Songs can sometimes switch quite abruptly. Is that part of that process?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and we're tuning in, like we can feel when someone's sort of moved through what we call a process. And then, yeah, or if we want to change it, that's enough of, or that it's not really, you know, supporting you with what we're trying to facilitate. Yeah, we'll change the song. And yeah, sometimes quite abruptly. It can be a bit annoying, but I think, yeah, that's the point.
And do you pick the music then, or is that part of like the training?
Yeah. So there is certain songs and certain playlists. So yeah, we can use those. But yeah, I have just started bringing in some of my own music as well, but I kind of tune in and listen to how that song makes me feel, and like what sort of response it elicits in my own body. And then yeah, I've sort of just been creating some of my own playlists, but I still definitely lean on the music. Yeah.
And do you change up the music then between sessions so that people are not expecting it for the next one? If the idea is to like kind of keep you on edge and shake you up a little bit at the start?
Yeah, ideally. I don't, you know, I don't make sort of like extensive notes or anything about a session or like which songs I played, or, you know, if there's some significant things, you know, I might make a little note about it, but we like to kind of take people as they are in the moment, which, you know, that might have changed significantly since last time we saw them. So yeah, there's like quite a few songs that like we can work through, and it also depends on like which processes we're working through in the body, like which parts of the body we're working with, as to like what songs we'll use. But yeah, I think the same. That's why I sort of started trying to experiment with a bit of my own music, because I was also feeling like I've listened to these songs a lot now, and I don't want to necessarily create that same experience for this client. So just sort of like keeping it fresh and not being able to sort of, even for myself, like predict what's going to happen. So yeah, I've found that like adding in some of the new music has helped with that.
Very interesting. And then you do some of like your own sort of sound healing with the whooshes and various noises as well.
Yeah, so yeah, we use certain sounds, yeah, like whooshing and yeah, all sorts of noises that we make to help facilitate the movement of the energy. And yeah, the nervous system ends up responding sometimes quite is it viscerally to the sounds. Yeah, and I think the sound is a big part of how the online sessions can work as well. Yeah, you can even some practitioners do like pre-recorded sessions, which is very
Mm.
interesting. Yeah.
Can you do it on yourself, or do you have like friends that you sort of team up and do it on each other?
Yeah, so I just work with other practitioners and experience the work like off them. We do a swap, or yeah, I don't do it on myself as such. I'd say more like
Right.
just tuning in like energetically to myself rather than like, actually practicing spinal energetics on myself. But yeah, it's good. It's really important to regularly receive the work because it just, it increases your connection with it. So I always find if I've like recently had a session, I'm feeling much more in tune with it. And yeah, it's important to keep practicing and keep experiencing the work for yourself, because at the end of the day, you can only take people as far as like what you've experienced in yourself. And also it's important just to, look after yourself and lean into these tools, particularly when you're working, with people. And it's important you have to look after yourself before you can help others.
What have been some of the most profound experiences either you've had or you've had clients experience?
Yeah, so I would say, well, from my own experience, I'd say the main thing that it has helped me with is just really like increasing self-awareness and becoming aware of like unhelpful patterns and habits, and just like conditioning, like, and beliefs that, you go through life and you pick up all these things along the way, and you kind of get to a point where maybe they're not helpful, and you just kind of think, well, where did that even come from? Like, is that even my own belief? Is that how I want to live my life? So I think for me, like, it's really helped with that, and also with getting like in tune with my own physical body. So I've spent so many years like running around, living up in my head. I'm not perfect, obviously. It probably still happens from time to time. But yeah, so really like tuning into the physical body. And then from that, I think I've become more aware of like my patterns and habits. And yeah, I think through noticing some of those, like, it's enabled me to just improve relationships and connect more with others. And yeah, just feel like I'm living more actually like in, in the moment, and connected to what's happening around me, rather than like constantly running on autopilot. Yeah, and I would say
Have,
for clients, probably most people probably report like after maybe a first session, like most people sort of just say like things like, "Oh, I just sort of felt like everything was a bit easier like that the following week," or things were happening, but I wasn't getting so caught up in it. And they might be going through some like quite significant like challenging things, but it's nearly creates a bit of space as well, similar to like meditation or yoga, how there's just sort of more space between like something happening, and then like you get to choose whether you respond or react. I've had other people like after sessions just sort of like move through resistance with like business. So where previously they've maybe been like sitting on like things for ages or procrastinating, they're just like a lot more free to take action and maybe have like bursts of like creativity, and then all these like good little things happen, like they get offered opportunities. And yeah, so it's just really unique to the person, like to the individual, depending on like what they're dealing with in life. Yeah, another client like said that she, since having the sessions regularly, she just feels like she's like not as in a rush all the time. Like she's quite a lot happier to take a step back, slow down. And yeah, she reckons that the sessions have really helped her kind of do that, whereas previously she was like always like having to be chronically busy, go, go, go. Yeah, so it just really depends on what the person is dealing with and what's happening in their lives.
yeah, that makes sense. I must say, so it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before we did it. And I've been quite energized since then, which has been nice. I haven't had much sleep because I don't get much sleep at the moment, but I did feel quite energized afterwards. Like often with sound healing, you're like all cozy and then you just want to go to sleep. Like I did feel quite energized afterwards, and yesterday and today I do feel quite energized considering how little sleep I've got. So hopefully that's a very good thing for what I need this week because I have a lot on. So
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
that's great. No, you're welcome. Yeah, I think it can really depend. Like, it can kind of go either way. So if you are a person that maybe is feeling like, oh, I'm tired all the time, I don't have any energy, we're really trying to increase that and like bring you back up. Whereas if there's someone who, they're constantly like in overdrive, like can't slow down, just got all these things happening, like trying to bring them like back down a little bit, and then, we're really trying to bring people back into this sort of like state of homeostasis and balance, depending on like which side of the spectrum that you're currently operating out of, like really just bring it back in from this, a more balanced state.
That makes sense. And I would say for myself, that's exactly what I needed as well because like the summit was like go, go, go. And then I absolutely crashed my nervous system after that, like plummeted to like zero. I was
Yeah.
exhausted. I had so much to do after the summit as well, but I just kept falling asleep. So I apologize to anyone if they were expecting anything
Yeah.
from me. I would literally go take my son to bed and I would just fall asleep at like 6:30 when I hadn't had dinner or anything yet. And it was like that for a week. And then we both got a cold. And then I had surgery. And it's just like every time I've just felt like I'm just coming back, like something else is just,
Yeah.
I've been exhausted. And it's been like 6 weeks now since that event. So when I say like I'm feeling energized again, I'm not feeling like over the top, like I could do a million things, but I feel normal and like a little bit up. I feel a lot up compared to what I've been feeling for the last 5 weeks. So I
That's
think I
so
think it
good.
made quite a big difference in that respect. From a yoga teacher's perspective, learning this modality, has that affected the way you teach yoga at all?
Yeah. So, I mean, I wasn't teaching for too long before I learnt the modality. However, I think since learning spinal energetics and since receiving spinal energetics myself and working with clients, like I'm a lot more in tune with like the energy in a room, how students, turn up with everything that's going on in their lives, and mainly to do with the breath. Like I'm very observant of the breath. So I like to tune in, and I'm very like I notice like how the breathing pattern is for students, and then I really lean on and like utilize that awareness to help support them with creating like a shift through the physical postures and the breath, obviously. And yeah, I just really love it because I can feel such a tangible change from when students turn up and, like everyone's so busy living their lives, they're doing 100,000 things, and they turn up and they're still sort of like in that momentum of go, go, go. And then even like the first few minutes, like guiding them through the breath, like I can feel a shift. Yeah, I can just feel that shift. And then by the end of the class, to just see how much more sort of connected they are to like themselves and to others in the room, and just to their true nature, like beyond all these sort of protective mechanisms, like, yeah, I just love that. Like you just see like this sort of softening, and yeah, I'm really passionate about it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That must be just like add a whole new wonderful like layer to be able to tune into that and that level with your teaching as well. All right. We will jump round to our last two rapid fire questions before I lose
Mhm.
your internet again. So we do talk about business on the podcast. So I did want to ask you, are you using any AI in your business at the moment? And if you are, what are you using? How have you found it useful?
I use Claude. I started using Chat for a while, and then I don't know, I came across Claude somehow. I just like Claude. Like I think he writes a lot better. I like the way that it's set out. I only recently paid to like upgrade to Claude, so I'm still starting to kind of fine tune things a bit more. Whereas before it was like pretty all over the place, to be honest. But yeah, mainly I use it for just helping me like structure my writing. I'll always kind of come up with like a bit of a draft. I'll just like dump my like thoughts in there and then help it like I'll get it to help me structure like the ideas, like help do some research, mainly for like my newsletter and Instagram like captions and stuff like that. Generally I sort of start off with a bit of like an idea of something that I want to talk about, and then I'll like flesh it out with AI, and then I'll go back and refine it, because obviously now everyone's talking about like how robotic everything's getting, and maintaining your authentic voice. And yeah, so I'm mindful of that. Yeah. And I think it is a very beneficial tool though, if we know how to use it. And yeah, it can only sort of get better so long as we're using it in the right ways. And but that's really it. I don't really have like a high tech like website with like a chat bot or anything like that at this stage. But the other thing that I used it for the other day was I had a Zoom call, and it like summarized the meeting and the notes. And it was really interesting because it was with my friend, and we were talking about our businesses and what we're planning and what we want to achieve in the next month or couple of months or whatever. And then yeah, the AI companion on Zoom created the summary, and it's almost like, because it's in writing, you feel like you have to then go and take action on it and do it. And the way that it writes it, it's like it nearly like talks you up, like, oh, you're achieving all these great things. So then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, like I'm gonna go and like do all these things now. And then we're hoping to meet like every month, so we'll use those sort of notes as like a a point of call to come back to, and yeah, like a little checklist, and see like what we've achieved between now and then.
Yes, I love that. I use Claude like a checklist, and it's giving you that motivation to keep going. And final question, if you could go back to when you first started teaching and pass on some advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say, as cliche as it sounds, like be afraid and do it anyway. And also just to sort of be yourself. Like, I think you're not going to be the teacher for everyone, you're not going to be the practitioner for everyone. But yeah, if you just continuously and like consistently show up as yourself, like you'll just naturally attract opportunities and people that you share the same values and goals of like how you want to live your life. I think at the end of the day, like, we can lean on people for support, but we're all like, we're walking through this human experience together. Like, it can get messy, and everyone's human.
That's so beautiful. I love that advice. Thank you so much for coming on today, Georgie. Just lastly, how can anyone connect with you if they're interested in learning more about spinal energetics, and just connecting with you?
Yeah, sure. So mainly on Instagram. So my page is Soul by GG. So Soul by GIGI. I don't really use Facebook. Just really like it that much. I'll probably get shadow banned for saying that or something. But yeah, so I would say Instagram, and then yeah, my website's on there. You can find all the links through there. But yeah,
Awesome.
thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for
much
having
for
me.
coming. Oh, you're so welcome. And thank you for sharing spinal energetics with me. I've really enjoyed learning about it because it's something I'd never heard before you reached out to me a couple months ago now. So thank you so much. And I look forward to connecting with you again.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.